Welcome back, everyone. It's Henry Metcalf and Brian Green with the GM Show, and we're so stoked to have a good friend of mine that I grew up with. Well, my older brothers grew up with more than anything, and I was jealous of Parker Vassau. Parker's more than anything an awesome husband and father, and he's getting after it in his work experience and then also in real estate, building his portfolio over the last, I don't know, 5 years and kind of really grinding on a lot of different avenues. So we're really excited to have you on, Parker. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This would be fun.
We would love to start off, kind of set the stage of how you got to where you are, but lay the foundation for people who don't know who you are. And so post mission, right? You go on your mission to Bulgaria,
Yeah.
then you get back from your mission. What was on your mind? Like, you're a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. What did you want to do at that point, and how did you first get introduced to sales?
Yeah, so I came home from a mission, ended up at BYU Provo. And I would say initially, I didn't have a lot of clarity. Like it was kind of just do what everyone else is doing, go to school. And my first couple jobs I worked off my mission were jobs where I was trading time for money, and quickly realized that school was going to be really hard for me if I kind of played that game and just like worked and did school all at the same time, which is what opened my interest up to go and try the whole summer sales thing in the summer. And I went and did that. And the thing I fell in love with was a job where you can trade value for money, not time for money. So I felt like, hey, on my mission and growing up playing sports, I learned how to be a really hard worker. And it feels like this job like better rewards me for some of those skill sets that I had developed up until that point in my life. But I would say even then, like I was pretty apologetic and like almost like embarrassed about working in summer sales for the first year or two while at BYU, because BYU and a lot of like formal education spaces have a way of making entrepreneurs and salespeople feel kind of silly for the track they're on. So it took me sitting down with some mentors and just basically getting clear on this path that I could take, which is called do sales, double down on it, don't be embarrassed about it, and buy real estate along the way. And so at some point while going to school, although I finished my degree at BYU, I studied marketing there. I kind of was like the black sheep kid that wasn't doing any internships or any sort of like summer. I was just selling in the summer, managing teams, kind of like doubling down on soft skill stuff so that I could be a high income earner. And then, yeah, we started buying real estate at a really young age. At 23 years old, my wife and I bought our first fourplex and did an owner occupied loan, moved into one of the units, rented out the other three. And I just fell in love with this like concept of like, I'm going to do sales. I'm not going to be embarrassed about it anymore. And then I'm going to buy properties and just play a different game than a lot of other people are playing. So, anyway, that's kind of an intro to me in terms of like how I got started.
That's that's awesome. I have a sales background as well, and I'm curious, like, um, what do you love most about selling, and what would you say some attributes that you developed post mission, or I mean, obviously working hard, and you had some skill sets prior to going out door to door, but like,
Yeah.
kind of led to your success, and what do you love about sales?
I think the thing I love about sales is kind of similar to sports. It's like the arena doesn't matter that much. It's like the athlete that's in the arena. And I love that about sales. Like I own and I'm a partner in a pest control company, and we deploy sales reps all over the country to go work for our company. And this concept that like two different people can knock the same area a couple weeks apart, and one person can get way better results than the other, or like two kids that are working on the same team can work different neighborhoods, but they're right next to each other, the same exact demographics, like, but one person sells a ton and the other one really struggles. Like, there's just this concept that there's control, and that it's the athlete, it's not the arena, is like such a cool concept for me. Um, in sales, I think there's three levers that you have to pull. Like, there's your work ethic lever, There's the like, how am I thinking about the day and my positivity and my mindset? And then the third lever is my skill set, like my actual technical training and stuff. So those are the recipes, and if you will, to be successful as a salesperson. I would just say like my overall favorite thing about it though is just this idea that you have control, tons of ceiling, tons of upside. And maybe my last thought that comes to my mind is just like being an entrepreneur, there's some risk that's associated with being an entrepreneur and starting your own business. But when you're just a sales guy and you're 1099, it's just kind of like you can treat it like it's your own business. But like if the thing goes under, you're not like hurt. Like it's just kind of this like there's tons of upside, but your downside's pretty protected. The worst thing that could happen is you just don't make any sales, you know. So anyway, I love it. I think it's a really cool. It's sales is such a cool skill, such an important skill, and I think your family will always have food on the table if it's a skill set that you go and develop.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think other than what you said, like doubling down after a year or two,
Yeah.
there is this like stigma, especially down in Happy
It's,
Valley, right?
yeah.
That comes with it at times. Uh,
Yeah.
Other than the doubling down aspect of it, a couple of years in, what advice would you give to yourself year one going into it that you think would have been impactful at the time?
I just wish I would have I think I wish I would have had bigger vision earlier. Like initially the vision for me was survival. Like I just need to pay tuition and maybe buy a ring for my wife because I want to get married soon. And those were like important whys to me. And they served me then, but I think like, I make jokes about this, but like if I'm like a warrior going into war or like and the thing that's like I'm like charging the hill being like tuition, like it's not strong enough. And it took multiple years for me to get like mentors that got my ear on, hey, your sales commissions could turn into investments that could turn into freedom, that could turn into like way cooler things than paying for tuition or for rent for a couple semesters. And so I think if I would have thought that way, then I probably would have worked a lot harder, dug a lot deeper, recruited more friends to come out with me and work with me. Like my vision, if your vision, the bigger your why is, the easier the how is. And so I wish I would have thought bigger and just kind of leaned into it more. Like my honest story, which is like the unsexy part, is I got a 16 on the ACT test in high school and I took it twice. Like education for me was really like school for me was not easy, and it took me a lot of years to lean into this idea of like I'm going to take a different path and like be an underdog. For a long time I tried to kind of play both. Like I'm going to pretend like school comes easily for me and that I'm going to go the academic route, but I almost wish earlier I would have just like fully gone into I'm gonna just double down on this sales thing. But at some point I did, and all the success I've had has come pretty much after I made that decision. So at some point I did, and I'm grateful for when I did make that shift.
That's awesome. Just want to congratulate on your success you've had thus far.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
it's going to be awesome to see what you do with this pest control company, but maybe to shift gears a little bit more and how you got into real estate.
Yeah.
You mentioned you've had some mentors along the way and just doing some research on you. It sounds like there was like a specific mentor in your life that, you went to lunch with and sat down and picked his brain and, he got a napkin and he kind of laid
Yeah.
out like a 10-year plan. And so I'm curious, like, do you mind sharing what that looked like and how did real estate play into that, his 10-year plan that he was mentoring to you?
Yeah, there's kind of two meetings around the same time. One of them was with that mentor that was kind of closer to my age that pulled out the napkin and mapped out a plan. The other one was a business professor that I had at BYU, named Corbin Church. That he's like an adjunct professor at BYU. That and what's funny is these messages were very similar. It was like you should actually go harder in what you're doing. Like quit being apologetic about your path and like lean into it more. But what you should do, so on that napkin, to answer your question, was this plan of The most simple way to create wealth is to buy a house as many times over and over as you can using an owner occupied loan, living in one of the units, renting out the other ones. Um, and utilizing those advantages that come with like buying an owner occupied. So that was what that plan was mapped out. It was, if you went and did this technically in your 20s for 5 to 7 years or 5 to 10 years, let me show you the math on like what this would mean for you. And so I committed that day. Like I came home, talked to my wife, and it was like, hey, we're gonna keep doing this sales thing, but not only are we gonna do that, like if you're okay with it, I will build an amazing life for us financially. Oh, we got fireworks
Oh,
behind
here
me.
we
Look at
go.
that. Man, that is funny. But the vision was, if we go do that for 5 to 10 years, then we will just, it will change our life. So we did that. My first property we ever bought was south of campus in Provo. Like I said earlier, it was a fourplex. We lived in one of the units. We rented out the other three. I think I put like 35 or 40 grand down to buy that property. We fixed it up a little bit, lived in it for a year, went out and did another summer of summer sales, came back from that summer, bought a duplex in Pleasant Grove, Utah, so like right up the road, lived in the basement of that one, rented out the upstairs. And so we just did this, man. Like we did this over and over and over again, and it was hard. Like I was talking with a friend about this last week. Like there were years where I was making really good money, like multiple six figures as someone in my mid 20s, and I had friends like buying sweet houses that were like, working in the same industry as me, and we were buying these like shacks that were not pretty, and we just delayed gratification as long as we stinking could. And so it allowed us to scale and buy a bunch of units in our 20s. And so that's a big part of our story, is like delaying gratification and using real estate as a place to park capital at a young age.
I want to give you the opportunity almost to give Jocelyn a shout out here,
Yeah,
um,
100%.
because like we're interviewing you, right? But you get the napkin, you get the story, you get the vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
You come home. I mean, we could shout out all of our wives way more than we do.
100%.
And so how impactful has she been in this story as you've been able to go from where you guys were at to today, and like the sacrifices she's had to make as well?
Yeah, dude, I appreciate that. Tons, dude. Like she actually, we joke about it, but when we actually moved 14 times in the first, I think, like 6 years of our marriage. And that was because not just the real estate thing that we were doing, but also summer sales. And so some people would be like, my wife was down, we did the house hack thing. My wife did the house hack thing plus moved in the summer. Like we were moving every 4 or 5 months, it felt like. And dude, girls, like there's like something about them. They like love to be, it's like the nesting thing, right? Like, especially as they start to have kids, like the last thing that anyone wants to do, especially girls, is like go and pick up and just keep moving around. Like there's this like lack of security that is associated with that. But yeah, dude, like my wife, honestly, dude, she was raised in a really cool way, um, where her parents had her at a pretty young age, like paying her own phone bill, paying her own car. In a lot of ways, I think my wife is so cool and thinks about things the way that she does because of how she was raised. Like just very like, just not spoiled, man. Like very much just had to go kind of like learn to be an adult at a young age. And so she was just always like, it never took a ton of arm twisting, to be honest, which I'm super grateful for. And she always had an awesome attitude, and like I'm so appreciative of that, because I know that not a lot of people have that. Like I'm super grateful that she was down to pay the cost, like because there's a price tag to what we went and did, and she was willing to go pay it. So yeah, shout out to my wife, big time. She's awesome. So
That's awesome, man. It sounds like she's definitely you guys are an awesome partnership as business
yeah.
partners and also in your family. I think one question for our listeners is like, whether you're selling door to door and you're making good money, or you're a professional or entrepreneur that's working 80 plus hours a week that wants to get into real estate, how can you walk us through, like, how did you find these properties, and what are some things that you learned, and whether that's through some initial failures or some wins, what are some things you learned along the way to, like, get your foot in the door and buy property? And what could you share to our listeners on, like, what to do and what not to do if they want to invest money in real estate?
Yeah. I would say so, because the awesome thing about my work is I get to help them with their active income. And these are like 18 to 25-year-olds usually. And usually not married, or if they are married, like probably don't have kids yet. And if they have kids, then they have like one kid. So it's like they're in the first inning still of like like life.
Figuring it out.
And so because of that, like usually that demographic is willing to be nimble, a little bit more uncomfortable and flexible, and they kind of like the strategies that I teach in real estate are those. Like I like the house hack stuff where you live in them. I think you can scoop up real estate faster and with less money down by moving into them. You need a place to live anyway, and so you might as well get some of the advantages of that. I just think the house hack thing is so powerful because even in today's market where prices are higher and interest rates are up, this possibility of taking 40 grand, 50 grand down and possessing or having ownership of an asset that's worth 600-700 grand or whatever. If the market does 5-10%, you make that on the value of the property, not on your down payment. And so like even though it probably nowadays won't be this like cash flowing machine for you, um it's you're 25 years old or 22 years old or whatever, right? Like I have a hard time believing that in 10-15 years you're going to be like super regretful of that purchase, even though it probably won't change your life in terms of cash flow or whatever. So I like the house hack strategy. I think that I also like a combination of that with like Burr method, which is where you renovate stuff and you kind of manipulate the value of the property if you can, like drive up the value, refinance it if the debt allows for it. We got really lucky and bought some stuff when rates were at like a 4 or a 5 initially, and then when rates went to like a 3 during COVID, we refinanced a bunch of properties, and that was like a big that was an awesome like thing that kind of worked out for us. But I think you catch breaks like that if you're invested in the market. And so like today, if you went and bought some stuff and then maybe rates go down 1 or 2 points here over the next little bit, like you could have a kind of a similar outcome as what we did a couple years ago. So I like the Burr method stuff where you renovate stuff, and so I like those types of strategies. Most of our properties that we own are in Utah and Idaho, and I own a couple things that are kind of more long distance, but for the most part I've stayed pretty local. And I wouldn't even call myself like a big time real estate professional. Like I'm not like up at night like analyzing numbers on real estate. There's people that are like you. Both of you guys are probably way more intelligent in terms of like running numbers on real estate deals and stuff. That's maybe the reason why I share that maybe is just to breathe belief into people that like they can and should still do this. The right strategies, I like strategies that are like forgiving, and so the strategies that I just mentioned are kind of more forgiving strategies. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, man. I mean, Brian's got a huge belief. We were just on the phone earlier, and like just doing, right? At the
yes,
end of the day, you can talk all you want about what's your vision. We could go
yeah,
and analyze numbers, like with the best of
right,
them, probably for go toe to toe,
right,
and we'd come to the conclusion of, hey, we're not going to buy it because we overanalyzed the heck out of this
yeah,
deal,
yeah, yeah,
compared to just going out and buying it, right?
hmm,
And so I think for our listeners, giving like them an understanding of where you bought and then like where your portfolio's at now, like if you don't mind sharing
yeah,
your doors, how many properties you own, and then really like what comes next for Parker, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
what do you see in the future? Are you going to pivot one way or another, or kind of like what's on the horizon for you?
yeah. So we own a total of 27 units. About half of that portfolio I have partners on with. So like we have a 13 unit apartment building that's in Idaho Falls that I have some partners on. I have some partners on that with.
Mhm.
I have a triplex that's in Ogden that I have a partner with, and then all the other units we own outright. So we have a fourplex, two duplexes. The house that we're in, we have another house that's up in Tremonton. Um, so we have I don't know, in the teens in terms of units ourselves, and then another 13, 15, 16 units that we have partners on.
That's awesome.
So that's our portfolio. Lots of most of the 2 to 4 unit stuff, or all of it, is in Utah, Utah County. Honestly, like Provo, Pleasant Grove, couple of places in Provo, place in Pleasant Grove, triplex in Ogden, another property up in Tremont, Utah.
With all the NIL money down in Happy Valley, you're gonna have tenants forever, man.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, I wish that, so the properties we have in Utah County, to be honest, are kind of like lower middle income. So I don't attract a ton of, like, I don't know. They're always full though. I'll tell you what. Like we list something on Marketplace, and those things fill up really nicely. So that's our current portfolio for sure. The stuff that we bought earlier is performing way better than the stuff that we've more recently bought. Um, just because I have a couple properties that I own right now that have, higher interest rates and margins are a little bit skinnier. The stuff that we have like a 3% interest rate on, we have 4 or 5 properties there with that kind of debt that does really well. Um, and then the last year or two, I also have invested pretty consistently in as like an LP in, with people like you guys. So I've done a couple deals with the Harris Investment Group. They're out of Provo. Grant Cardone, who people tease me about, but I've done some checks with him and his group. So I've done some LP deals, done some venture capital investing actually, which has been fun. And then honestly, like 90% of my brain space and time right now just goes to my job, which is managing the door-to-door sales army that we have. So I have about 200 reps that work with us right now. And going forward, that's a huge focus for me. Like, it's like the one thing that if we get right could open up a lot more doors for me in my life. And so I spend very little time on my rental properties. I have a manager that manages all of them for me. So I don't really take calls on those, which is awesome. We sacrifice cash flow for that, but like it's so worth it for me. But yeah, I would say my main focus is just building a really awesome company and just continuing to develop salespeople and just trying to grow out an amazing program that can help us build out a really awesome business that I'm proud of. So that's kind of what our focus is going forward. And then just family stuff. My wife and I have been married 9 years. We have 2 kids. We have a 5-year-old little boy and a little girl, and we hope to have more kids and just keep building. And it's that classic, like, we're all trying to do it right. It's trying to crush it in all the important areas of life, and some days you do better than others. So
100%.
That's
yeah,
awesome. I was gonna actually follow up with like, hey, you've got a lot of units
yeah,
ranging from within 30 minutes to an hour of your home to Idaho Falls is probably what 5 to 6 hours.
yeah. It's a
You
drive.
answered my question about a manager. So for some of our listeners that want to have more units, maybe in their existing state or out of state, how did you?
Yeah,
How long did you just operate those units by yourselves? And how did you find a manager that you trusted that
yeah,
that can operate it? Because more than anyone, like operations is just as important as location almost.
yeah,
And so how'd you go about that?
yeah. Good question. So the Utah stuff, I managed myself for like 3 or 4 years,
Hmm.
and that sucked. I'll be honest. Like, I'm not handy at all. I was, yeah, like I just because my day job is so heavy and stressful already, doing that on top of it just, and it honestly, like I shouldn't say it sucked. Like it doesn't take a ton, but when it rains, it pours. Like, it feels like once a month. It was like holy smokes, like that's like 3 days in a row that something's happened at a property. So I self managed for a couple years, and then I hired a management company, and they didn't do awesome. And so I've been through one management company, and now I'm with a new one, and he's like a solo guy that's actually amazing. If you're in Utah County and you need Rex on a property manager, I have a really awesome contact on that. His name is Mike Moody, but he manages
Mike.
all of my. What's that?
Shout out, Mike.
Yeah, shout out Mike. Mike has saved my life. Um, Mike is awesome, manages my units. Um, to answer your question on the long distance stuff, you got to start day one with a manager if you're going long distance, right? So we had a property manager. There's actually this kind of a funny story, but there's a kid that I follow that worked in my industry for a long time. He's a YouTuber named Chandler Smith, and he used to post videos. That guy owns like all of Idaho Falls. He's got like 200 units. He's amazing. Um, he used to post about his property manager and how good he was, and I found this deal in Idaho Falls through an agent, and it penciled. It looked really good. I had I had a really good year that year, and I was excited to go buy something bigger that year. So I got some money together from some of my sales guys. We bought this property in Idaho Falls, and then I started trying to kind of figure out who to use. And then I remembered that I watched that kid's YouTube videos, and I just looked him up and called him and asked if he would manage my stuff. And he said he's kind of pretty exclusive with that guy, but anyway, he ended up doing it. So he's managed it, and he's like insanely good. Like my phone never rings, and he pays every month, and he's really good. So anyway, kind of one of those like just just like you said, just do it, right? Like you saw a video, you saw a guy, he's recommended, call the guy, try it. If it doesn't work, then pivot, and it's kind of how it works. So
Hmm. I think one thing that I'm really intrigued by from you as a human, like if I could mirror this aspect of what you do in my life, I think I'd be pretty good. And it's you're very public about what you're building, the Underdog Academy, I think is what it's called, right?
yeah.
And you have a lot of I've been through your videos, you have like 1,000 acronyms, and so like I try to follow along with the
Yeah.
acronyms.
I do love acronyms.
You're an acronym guy, but
Yeah.
the a couple of them that I want to focus on that are really important, because I think family is one thing that keeps you centered and helps you find success,
Yeah.
but then you also have to have kind of a strategy personally to go out and achieve at a high level. And one of
Yeah.
them that you have is dog, right? So develop,
Yeah.
obtain, and grow. Can you
Yeah.
kind of highlight on that? And I'm really interested on that and like the 4 F's that you talk about being faith, family, fitness, and finance. And like,
Finances.
how does that like, how does that
Yeah.
impact what you're doing on a day to day and help you like stay on the path that you're trying to get on?
So the dog thing, like I basically like when I'm coaching reps, like if I have a rep that wants to come work with me and they're just like, dude, I want to create wealth, like where do I start? Like so for me it's you have to develop as a person, right? Like develop as a person. This is like the personal development stuff. You'll never out earn your level of development. So you got to become a beast. You got to have some confidence. It's all the internal inside stuff, right? Like the self work. Obtain high value skills is the O, which is the active income portion. You have to have an active income vehicle to go make a ton of money. And then the G is grow through investing. So develop as a person, obtain high value skills, and grow through investing. So you need to become the type of person that can be wealthy, obtain high value skills in terms of your active income, and then grow that money through investing. So that I think if they'll focus on those three pillars, just become a better person, learn, soak it up, find a mentor, find a skill that you can, where you can make a ton of money, because you got to have an active vehicle. Like a lot of people in the investing world discount this importance of having an active income vehicle. Like everyone wants to talk about how you can buy all these rental units with no money down, and it's like, dude, I don't know. Like for me, That's not how I did it. Like I found a skill that I could make a ton of money at, and then I grew through investing. So those are kind of the three pillars that I teach in my program, and I want to help people develop. I want to help them obtain high value skills and then grow their money through investing.
You're developing dogs, right?
Yeah, dude.
That
So that's the
that
goal.
dog is
And I love this word. I love the word underdog, dude, because like, you and I both grew up playing sports, or all three of us did. Brian played longer than we did in actual Brian was a real athlete.
yeah, for real.
But I love that word because I felt a lot of insecurity through high school in terms of not in sports and stuff. I felt confident there, but in the classroom, I felt like an underdog, and so I was able to kind of channel that going into college and found a skill that I could go compete at. Um, so anyway, I love that's I'm trying to build a brand around that word. I just think it's a cool word, and I think to some extent, everyone somewhere in their life feels like an underdog, and they can kind of reason and resonate with that. So and then the other thing you asked about is just that 4Fs framework. So faith, family, finances, and fitness. When I schedule my week every Sunday, like I'm trying to build my life around those four Fs. Like my faith is super important to me. My faith in God is huge. I want to build a like my family's everything. I want to keep them first. My finances, I want to win there and be abundant there and crush it. And then I want to not die young. Like I want to enjoy it and have a healthy, strong body. And so like I think that's a cool framework to build a well-rounded life around. And so that's another. You're right though. I do like acronyms. I have a lot of them in my.
The acronym king.
Yeah, man.
Dude, that's awesome, man. It's you're inspiring, and I think we could talk for hours just about faith and
Yeah.
family, and that's both those two things are very important to Henry and I, and I think it's inspiring to just hear you and your passion around that. I think a question that I have, like if you were to sit down at a table and have like a blank napkin, and like you were telling, you were across from yourself,
Yeah.
and you could almost write out like what you want to accomplish in the next 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
maybe specifically around like your business and real estate.
Yeah.
Like, what would you write on that napkin so that, when you pull that napkin out in 10 years, you'd be stoked to like, hey, yes, I accomplished that. Like, what
Yeah.
is that blank napkin? What are you going to write out, man?
That's awesome. I love that question, and I actually think my brain actually thinks that way a lot. I'm always like trying to skate to where the puck's going, not to where it's at, type of thing. And so I think a lot about the future and where do I want to be when I'm 35 or 40. I'm 32 right now, and so like my brain thinks that way all the time. But I would say in general, like I just want to it's kind of that 10x is easier than 2x concept. Like I'm excited about 10xing everything that I have currently going on. I hope we have a bunch more kids. I hope we have a bunch more wealth, real estate units. I hope by then I've impacted a ton more people in terms of like helping them sell and become proficient sellers. Um, so within those 4 Fs, if you will, like I just hope that we multiply. Like I want to play through multiplication, not addition, over the next 10 years. Like, and so I think that's kind of the theme is just like, I don't know what the number is, but I want it to be kind of scary big because I want to try to find a way to play through multiplication. But I haven't had any like the one thing I'm excited about that like gets me up in the morning and if I'm just focusing just on my career is I want to have like exits. Like I want to be able to like build something and just see it spiritually created, then like physically created, and either sell it or get it to a place where like the business itself is just really profitable. And I think up until now it's been trade value for money, get commissions, invest it in real estate and see that grow, which has been amazing. But I want to focus on business in my 30s and like really build things that last that I can be really proud of by the time I'm 40 years old, if you will. So anyway, those are a couple thoughts for you. in terms of just like that blank napkin. And um but I'm excited. That maybe the last thing I'll just share is like I I saw this quote the other day. I wish I could pull it up. It's like the concept was like a couple years ago you prayed for the things that you have today. And I think that's so true. Like my life I currently have, like I can remember the days where I prayed for the things that I currently have. And so I'm so grateful for like where I'm currently at. And I always want to like stay in that state of mind because I don't want to get to an old person and just be chasing the next thing constantly over and over and over again. Um, so that's super important to me too. So there's this balance of like I'm hungry and I want to go crush it. I've never been hungry and more excited about my future, but I also like I always it's that grateful but never satisfied balance. I do remember the days I prayed for what I have today, and so I'm super grateful for kind of just like where we're at too, and I'm really in a way just at peace. So life's good, man.
God is good, dude.
God is good all the time.
I think I'd be reminiscent not to ask a question about Darl because
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Darl's the absolute man. For people who don't know, like Parker's stepdad passed away from ALS earlier, like pretty recently.
Yeah, September.
And so that's just brutal. And for people that didn't know Darl, like the absolute man, especially at church ball more than anything else. If you got Darl McBride and Mike Metcalf in a church ball gym together,
Yeah,
there's
dude.
usually at least one technical every game. So
Yeah. Yo. Not supposed to hear a lot of curse words in church ball, but
yeah.
they'd let them rip.
Yeah, chairs definitely thrown, water fountain smoking. There's stories there without a doubt. But
Yeah.
he's an incredible man and
Yeah.
big believer, not only faith but in other people. And like
Yeah.
if you knew him, you felt that always.
Yeah. Yeah.
What lessons did he teach you that have stuck with you the most and have the biggest impact on your life today?
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I appreciate you asking that. He for me, like I think about him every day. The thing I would say for Darl was his first of all, he was the hardest working person I know um and have ever crossed paths with. So like having that in a father figure meant a ton. It's like I thank God for that every day. Like he was dude, he was always up at night cutting deals, working hard. He was the last one to go to sleep, the first one to wake up basically every day of my life. And so he instilled like just insane work ethic in me, and I love him for that, and I appreciate that big time. Unwavering optimism, like such a positive person, almost to a fault, like to where like every business venture that crossed his path, he would go chase down because he just like he it was like this thing chemically that he had where he just believed in everyone, like you said, and himself so stinking much, dude. And in a world where there's a lot of people that are pessimistic or complain or freaking, just negative, like he just was so stinking positive. And maybe the last one would just be that he was just a really, really big thinker. And I loved that about him. Like all of our passwords in our house, in terms of on the computers and stuff, it was like Victory Ranch is a really cool golf community that's in Utah that's like one of the most elite, kind of hard to get into private clubs. And I think the last like 5 to 10 years of his life, that was our password um on everything. Like and it was like Victory Ranch 24, Victory Ranch some sort of, and it was because that was the thing that got him up in the morning, was that like big thinking, that's where I'm taking my family. We're going to Victory Ranch. We're going to spend the second half of my life at Victory Ranch. And so in a lot of ways, like that is the thing that like it's a big part of like why I do what I do now, is I want to go like take those three things and freaking like just carry the torch and make him proud, because I'm a big believer that he's with me and that he was watching over me, and he's when I'm having days where I'm feeling down or days where I don't have it, like I trust and have faith that like he's there with me and helping me go and get it done. And he loved business, like loved it. Like he loved talking about wealth creation and stuff. And it's so something that we had in common. And so in my eyes, I kind of view business now more than I ever have as like a spiritual game, because I have someone on the other side now that's a spirit that loved that game. And so it's like when I go kick butt in business now, I feel like I'm connected with him. So anyway, thanks for asking that question. It's
That's awesome.
something I think about a lot. So
Well, not knowing your stepdad, but knowing and getting to know you today, I think my takeaway is, us as human beings, whether it's our children, whether it's our colleagues, like I think we all have an opportunity in this life to really make an impact. And he clearly has made an impact on you.
yeah,
And I'm sure a lot of your vision and your work ethic has obviously been developed and just learned from that. And I think leading by example is just so cool. And shout out to your stepdad, who we know is still alive and in a great
100%.
place, man. And anyways, dude, I wish we could spend more time with you. I don't think this will be the last time we invite you as a guest, but like,
Yeah, no, dude, I've loved this. Thank you guys for having me on.
yeah.
And yeah, whether it's on camera or not, let's connect sometime. I'd love to and get to know you guys. I mean, I know Henry, but I'd love to get to know you more, Brian. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys having me on. This has been super fun. So
Yeah, and for anybody looking to, I guess, get into door to door or learn from Park and mentor, like what's the best way to get in touch with you? We'll give you opportunity to kind of give your
yeah,
information.
I would say Instagram. As of recently, I've been trying to lean into like personal branding and making some videos about my door to door sales, company and real estate investing. And so find me on Instagram. It's just my full name, Parker. I think it's Parker.Vassau, Vassau, is my Instagram handle. Um, and then yeah, you can kind of find everything there. I have a couple things that I like, little offerings that I have in terms of just helping people create wealth, and some tools that I wish I would have had back in the day to kind of get me going. But super happy to connect with anyone. Like I want to help people that are further, that that want to kind of go down the same road that I have. And so hit me up. Super happy to connect and add value and help out. So
Sweet. You're the man.
Awesome, man. Well,
Thanks so much, Parker.
thanks guys.
dude,
Appreciate you.
thanks, brother.
Okay. Have a good one.